This is Wickett on Wisconsin. My name's Mike Wickett. After 10 years in Milwaukee talking sports, I took a bit of a break, but now I'm back and here to talk about the Packers, the Bucks, the Brewers, and more with you. And now inside the Koss Headphone Studios, this is Wickett on Wisconsin with me, Mike Wickett. Another episode of Wickett on Wisconsin. Thanks so much for checking out the podcast. And if you're watching on video, you are seeing my guest this week, his very first Zoom call. Thank goodness there are younger people in his office. The former Brewer pitcher, Paul Wagner, is my guest to talk about this crazy season that starts in a couple of hours, seemingly. Wags, congrats on combining your technology and the new technology and entering the Zoom world.
It was not maintained or set up by myself, but I am playing the game. So I'm in the game. Don't know all the rules yet, but I'm playing. So that's the way I look at it.
You know, I feel like that's a good place to start. When you heard about the plan that Major League Baseball and the players were going to have of 60 games and no fans and all the – you can't spit and you can't high-five. What was your reaction a month and a half ago or a month ago or whatever it was when we figured out we're going to have a weird but we're going to have a season?
Well, first of all, yeah, you know, those little rules and the little idiosyncrasies that each guy uses is something that's going to take time to do. But – we need baseball right now, and I'm just excited that it can happen. You know, we need it. I mean, and for that split second, and people were asking us even this morning on the radio, they were saying, you know, what are you thinking opening day, less than hours away? For that split second is bad. The last 5 months were. Hopefully, regardless of age, that person can actually flip that switch and turn back and have an opening day. Listen to Bob Uecker here. Listen to the voices that they're familiar with in St. Louis, in LA. You know, just for that little bit of time, go back and kind of forget what's happened the last 5 months. And that's why opening day is so exciting for all. And hopefully that's the way it transpires.
How do you plan on spending your opening day?
Well, I'm going to, unfortunately.
You're going to be working in the office I'm talking to you in right now.
I'm going to be at the office, but I won't be there. I won't be tailgating at Miller Park. We won't be having cocktails. It's going to be something different. It's just, you know, it's just exciting to see it. We can see results. We'll start watching highlights and just to see baseball. We can talk. It's conversation, and conversation is what people need to do. When you're not communicating, it's hard. You know, you kind of clam up.
Aren't you just sick of seeing on social media, I'm anti-mask, I'm pro-mask, I'm anti-virus, I believe it's a hoax, I believe it's like there's so much infighting going on right now. I miss the days we would fight about who's the best pitcher and whether or not Ricky Weeks should be sent down. And, you know, that's what baseball and having sports back really is going to be, as a distraction as we try to get this virus under control.
Absolutely, and it's going to be exciting because the way the season is set up, you got 60 games in 66 days. What are they going to do? How are we going to adjust, you know?
When, you know, and we'll get into a lot of these things like the broadcast so far, what you think of it. But Paul, I think about what 60 games means for a pitcher and start with that, because what is that, 10 starts, 12 starts, maybe for these guys that are the high profile, big dollar frontline guys?
Right. And now we look at a Brett Anderson who's been IL'd, so he's going to go to Appleton. Now our whole rotation switches here in Milwaukee. We go Woodruff, Burns, and Peralta in Chicago, and then we got, you know, Lindblom starting in Pittsburgh and stuff like that. So how is it going to, when these starters are used to, you know, going 6 or 7 innings, they want to get their 10 starts. It's not going to happen here, and that's why I think Craig Counsell is going to have such he's going to have success here. He knows how to do that. You look at MLB ratings, and they're predicting the Dodgers #1, the Yankees #2. But I know both of them. We know Dave Roberts. We know Aaron Boone. We know that they can manage over 162 games. But Craig Counsell has the ability to maneuver and manipulate his roster. He can manage 60 games. He's gotten to the playoffs the last 2 years playing the shuffle game, and that's where I think Craig Counsell, this Milwaukee Brewers, we're ranked 15 right now. Milwaukee could be up there.
I was going to say, do you think it benefits a team? Because the Brewers don't have – I mean, Woodruff, I think, has ace stuff. I mean, I watched him a couple of days ago in one of these scrimmages, and he just looked like he was throwing gas, and he looked almost unhittable. Now, granted, it was an inter-squad scrimmage, and this wasn't Game 7 of the NLCS. but
Right.
they don't have, a 1-2 of a Strasburg and Scherzer like they do in Washington, or, the great rotations in baseball. But their strength may lie in their pen. Do you think that benefits a team over this 60-game run, or do you think it's still the old adage, once we get going here, the teams with the best 5 starters usually have the advantage?
No, and I would have said that in a normal year, but with this situation, I think it's almost going to be, I don't believe it. I'm old school. I don't believe in the opener ideas. I don't believe in that. But with a shortened summer camp per se, we're going to have Brandon Woodruff. We're going to have Burns coming out there throwing 99 miles an hour he's going to be asked to get 15 outs. Can you get 12 outs? Can you get 15 outs? And then it's going to be rolled over. We have 4 extra guys in the bullpen right now with the 30-man roster. 2 weeks from now, when we drop down to 28, I'll see how that manipulates. But you got Lauers going to Appleton. We got Brett Anderson dealing with a blister. He's going to be back. We've got some arms. We've got some young kids. We've got Williams he's throwing the hell out of the ball. We got Rasmussen who's throwing 99. We got guys in a short series, and I know 60 games isn't a series, but it almost is a sprint. You got guys blowing 100. That's going to help.
I don't think a lot of these teams with their big name arm, I don't know what guys did in the offseason. I mean, I saw from the Bucks and the NBA, Chris Middleton said he didn't pick up a basketball for 3 months. I know some of these Brewers pitchers, they're ready to go. If it was a regular season, they could give you 6-7 innings, I think, on start 1 or start number 2. Have you heard, are guys stretched out and ready to go 5, 6? I mean, I think you're right, though. I don't think you'll see a lot of guys go 8 and 9, especially early on.
No, I think the goal is set early. Like you said, early on, I think that goal is give me 15 outs. How can you give me can you give me 15 outs by limiting your pitching? And 15 outs, if you look at it, that's 5 innings. So up and down. The hardest part about a shorter camp isn't necessarily how many pitches you throw. It's how many times you get up and get down. So I got hot. And then what if the Brewers score 3-4 runs? Now you've been sitting in the dugout for 20 minutes. So when I look at a shortened preseason or a summer camp per se, that up and down, the hot and cold is what's going to wear and tear on these arms. And then I look at, we've got young arms. We're not like Verlander and Greinke. We're not like Scherzer and Strasburg. These arms, these guys can bounce. I'm not saying they can go and do capable things of like those guys, but when you got a younger arm, you're more susceptible to that rubber arm per se. I get 15 outs by those guys. I can roll them every 4 days or 5 days. But the biggest thing also with Craig is he also manipulates and plays the days off. This situation, this season, there's not going to be those days off.
Yeah, what are there, 6 days off, 7 days off the entire run here? I mean, I think they get an early day in the schedule. I don't have it memorized. I'm sure you do. Right. But they get an early day off, and then it's boom, 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 boom for like 3 straight weeks without a day off. Which scares me, by the way, because I don't know if you've heard this before, but if you don't like the weather, just wait 5 minutes. In every city in the Midwest where the Brewers will be playing, and only one team in this whole run of the AL and NL Central has a dome. It's the Brewers. Everywhere else is going to have rainouts. I mean, that scares me for how they have, all these games backed up with very few days to play rainout days.
Exactly. And with that being said, there's 2 things that are pretty nice on there. Yes, the Chicago Cubs Milwaukee Brewers series are going to see 7 games at Wrigley, 3 at Miller Park. If something does happen with rain, regardless if we're playing the Cubs, Cincinnati, anywhere, if that game is rain and it's forecast for the next few days, the ball game is going to be switched over to Miller Park.
Good.
The other thing I look at is if you look at all the traveling, we're going Central, AL Central, National League Central. The West is staying in the West and the East. We're restricting travel. The Milwaukee Brewers have the least amount of miles traveled. And when you're going back and forth, the Milwaukee Brewers can jump on that and take that as an advantage. They won't be traveling as much as every single other team in Big League Baseball.
Who's traveling the most in the division? Would it be Pittsburgh because they have to go from Pennsylvania and then straight down, or Kansas City because they're the most south? I mean, that's an interesting fact I never even thought about because, yeah. I mean, granted, those guys travel better than you and I when we're flying southwest, but still that can take a little bit of a mental toll.
Yeah, absolutely. And that number, I don't know how it bared out, but I did see, and I want to say about 3,900. The miles is something. And when you're a player and you're leaving your family and you're going, granted, we're not going East Coast and West Coast like we've done in the past, but you're still traveling and air, that it's big. So the less travel time we have, and Milwaukee has the benefit there. Plus, with the only controlled environment, we're going to have games played here because there's going to be some weather issues.
I feel like we're going to see a Cubs-Tigers game played at Miller Park. I mean, don't you think that's going to happen? I mean, remember when it was the Angels and the Indians played a series at Miller Park because a snowstorm rolled through Cleveland a couple of years ago or 10 years ago?
Remember Zambrano came up with the Cubs and through a no-hitter?
Oh, that's right. Yes.
So, yeah.
Our old buddy Doug Russell left that game. or was it Chuck Freeman? I can't remember. One of the two guys I used to work with in Milwaukee left that game and regrets it still to this day. Offensive wise, are the Brewers? It's hard to figure out because no one's ever seen a 60-game season like this. I mean, how often do guys remember J.J. Hardy when he and Prince Fielder were all-stars? What was it, 2008, 2009, something like that? Hardy was one of the league leaders in home runs for the first half of the season. What happens if something strange happens and Justin Smoke all of a sudden has 12 home runs in the first 20 games? I mean, that kind of stuff, or go the other way. If Christian Yelich is 2 for his first 40, the first couple of weeks are so crazy because you don't have 162 to make up for stuff.
Right, exactly. You're going to see highs and lows. And we were just talking about earlier this morning, Christian Yelich, he's 2 for 20 in his summer league.
Cut him. Get rid of him. Cut him. Get him out of here.
Exactly. Don't worry. Are you serious? But you know what? It's going to happen. You know what? You hope Logan Morrison, you hope these guys, Keston Hiura, we know about Keston's elbow. We know he's going to have soreness. We know it's you can't fix it. So we know he's going, but he's a major league hitter. He's going to start hot. He's going to play hot. Our offense is going to be fine. Don't worry about Christian Yelich. The ones that I worry about are our older guys. Look at Ryan Braun. We don't know. I still haven't heard. Maybe it's been announced already, but I don't know if he's going to be ready for opening day. But I look back at his track record. He's never missed one. So I gotta bet on him being there. But the older guys, the backs and the elbows and the necks and stuff like that are going to hit these guys, especially with the abbreviated summer camp. Because they all got. You go through your off-season workout, you go to spring training for 6 weeks, and now all of a sudden you shut it down for another 3 months, and now you got to crank back up. So I look for the veterans to have those nicks and bruises, and they missing more games than anticipated. But the Milwaukee roster loaded with young guys that'll play every day.
How's your back? How's your hip? How you doing?
It left back in 2003 when I was done. I just got to make sure I can lift a beer.
How many games will Ryan Braun play at DH? Because now the DH is a National League rule too.
If Ryan Braun's healthy and we can get 40 games out of him, I think it'll be
at DH.
Yeah, absolutely. He may play a couple games at first base, depending on, but with Logan Morrison, depending on how he plays in these first, I hate to say it, he's got 2 weeks to prove himself. I don't know where the roster is going to go. I don't know how managers are going to play these numbers games, but when you have 30 guys for the first 2 weeks, it'll work itself out. And hopefully he produces offensively the way he can, then Ryan Braun can be that situation. If Logan Morrison starts out 2 for 30 or 2 for 20 or something like that with 15 punch outs, well, he'll be gone. Ryan Braun will be slipped into that DH spot, first base slot, and we'll bring in another arm. So it's all about the starts, like you said, and how quick can they do. Smoke goes 12 homers, we're set.
And if you think back to last year after, 60 games or whatever, Washington wasn't even in the playoffs. And they had that crazy turnaround. So you never know with teams and individuals what can happen in a 2 week span, because 2 weeks now matters so much. I feel like, tell me if I'm way off on this, all these guys got to do, all these teams, and especially the Brewers, hang around 500 for that first month and then see where you can go. Because I think I saw the prediction between the Brewers, the Cubs, the Reds, they're all supposed to, and the Cardinals, they're all supposed to finish between, with 30 to 36 wins. That's a good week. That's all the difference is, I think, between winning this division in a 60-game run and finishing fourth in the division in a 60-game run.
Exactly. So very, very important. We've always said Major League Baseball is a marathon, 162 games. But I've been a believer since the day with you when we were talking to Ned Yost, and he complained about game one we lost. I said, you know what? It's funny how you play 162 games and it still comes down to the end, a game and a half out. So this is the situation where now
this matters more. This is like the NFL season. Like you start out 0-3 in the NFL, you can't make the playoffs. You start out 2-15 this time around, you can't make the playoffs.
Correct. This is a sprint. You can't start cold. So that's where I'm going to see guys being shuffled. And that's where Craig Counsell is going to rise because he can shuffle, move guys out into the bullpen. And that's what I like.
This is a sports talk radio listener's dream because when I was on the air and when you were on the air, it was like the first couple of weeks, people would freak out. I'm done with Corey Hart. I'm done with this guy. I'm done with that guy. Now, you really can be done with someone after a week because a week matters so much more than a week in April. This is great for sports radio.
Yeah. There's no waiting. There's no waiting for 20 at bats, like you said.
Right, because I mean,
5 games.
Every year, to me, baseball didn't really settle itself until Memorial Day weekend, and now because that was the first week of June or the last week of May or whatever, and we don't have that option. So it'll be crazy to see, come Labor Day where we're at. I mean, that to me is going to be a hell of an indicator. And then how about this, Wags? What do you do at the trade deadline? Are you going to mortgage a big piece of your future from your farm system for an ace you may or may not control or for a closer you may or may not control for 27 games?
Right. Or look at the flip of it. Are you out of it? Do the Milwaukee Brewers push a Ryan Braun to the West Coast or to another team to let him prolong? If the DH is already incorporated for 2021, as we know, is it going to move on? I think the CBA, I think the Players Association, the Players Union wants veteran players to stay around the game as a draw. And now we're moving to a 26-man roster, possibly a 27-man roster. Reverse so do we mortgage the farm to win? I don't know. But do we let go of some guys if we're losing? Do we try to build? 60 games is a pretty something that the Milwaukee Brewer organization can take advantage of because in a short-term series or a short-term season, I think we have a great chance.
What was your favorite? I mean, it's weird to say an off-season acquisition because Knebel wasn't going to be back, but now because of the weird off-season, he actually is able to join them, and I'm excited to see him throw. They bring in Avi Garcia. They bring in the new catcher. Who was your favorite off-season acquisition?
I got a lot of them. I really do. I like the fact that we're moving Yelich back to left field, Garcia to right field. I do like that. The catching spot, I'm sad. I'm sad Grandal is gone. I really liked him. I thought he could – become that guy if finances worked and all that. I like the smoke. We've got a lot of utility players. We brought in a handful of utility players before it got shut down in March. So those guys were all playing. I like Smoke. Obviously, if he can play like he was supposed to, that's going to give us a bat. And we're kind of punching in that right field porch at Miller Park where guys can hit home runs. So I'm looking forward to a lot of the new bats taking advantage of Miller Park dimensions and let's go from there because I think we can score runs.
Did you watch any of the broadcasts on Fox Sports Wisconsin? What did you think of the crowd noise, the empty stadium? I mean, it felt kind of weird, but after a couple of innings, it felt kind of normal. And I kind of like the crowd noise.
I thought it was pretty good. I tried to watch as much as I could. I didn't really look at the cardboard faces. I didn't see who paid $50.
They got to bring those down to the front row, man. I need front row Amy there. I need the rest of the guys, that are they're always, there's a Doug Melvin lookalike that sits just off to the right side of the screen every single game. I want those. I want to know why they didn't fill those seats with fans and why the euchre seats are the ones that have all the cardboard cutouts.
I think they took a little thing when we were dying for baseball of sorts. The Korean Baseball League showed up. So now I think that's where we got our jump from. But you know what? I think it's great that when I watch those inter-squad games, I watched how veterans take their at-bats. So I used Christian Yelich again. Yeah, 2 for 20. But you know what? He saw velocity from Burns. He saw velocity from Woodruff. He saw left-handers. He saw breaking balls. He's picking up spin. This is where an MVP and a most valuable player learns he's not going to go 2 for 20. He's going to start out hot. The guys I look for is, the guys that were hot, hitting the ball hard. Can they maintain? Because when that switch gets flipped and big league pitchers get on the mound and it's for real and the lights are brighter and the grass is greener, these boys come out to play. So inter-squad laughing around, that's great. We're all having a good time. But you can see your season pros, regardless of the numbers they put up, they were learning and they're ready for the season.
Here's a scary thought. What if fans really like the 60-game season? What if ratings are really, really high? And I expect anything that happens in the pandemic ratings-wise, I kind of take with a grain of salt because we're all so desperate. Take, for example, the Last Dance documentary about Michael Jordan. It was the only thing anybody was talking about. But I think if it got released during a normal year, it gets watched, but it doesn't have Sports Center, segments dissecting every single bit of it. Ratings will be high, I think, for baseball. But what happens if fans really like a short season?
And they probably will. We've kicked around 152 games. We've kicked that around a lot. But you got to look, step outside the box. The boys who built those stadiums, the boys that are paying the players to play, You've got to play 162. We need revenue. The thing that be exactly right.
Money.
The thing that may happen is they may go down to 152, but they will expand the playoffs from 10 teams to 16 teams. I know that's been kicked around too, but the shorter season keeps the fan involved because more games are important. Average fan goes to what? We pulled up those numbers. Average fan goes to 4.3 games a year. Are you serious? 4.3? Unless you're a season ticket holder, 4.3 for the average Joe Blow fan. I mean, 152 games, granted you're cutting out very few, but you got to get there. But the playoff experience will be nice. If you expand that to 16 teams, I think you'll get a lot more interest.
I agree with you. I think if you did a couple of 3-game series, and I don't need 5 or 7, but a couple of 3-gamers to get it going, give more teams a chance. I mean, I think, there will never be a salary cap in baseball, but the playoff format in the NFL and the salary cap in the NFL is one of the reasons why people love the NFL, also gambling and fantasy, but still those other two reasons I think draw a lot of people in. And it will be interesting to see where they go from here. I would like an expanded playoff.
Yeah, I do too. I like that. Granted, some guys can get lucky. We saw the Washington Nationals win the World Series last year. Josh Hader, Josh Hader's one ball away from if he doesn't break his bat, that ball really hits the knob. It really didn't hit him in the arm and he gets first base. There's so many things. The Washington Nationals are out. The Milwaukee Brewers may not advance to the World Series, but the ball drops and it's such a funny game. So adding more teams and every player and every guy knows how important it is. So you have a 3-game series, you got to get on it.
That one gamer was intense. Like I was sweating from the first pitch until when Hader blew the ball game for him. And again, the ball's 6 feet one way. It's a different story altogether. What's Hader's role this year? If you're Craig Counsell, put on your managerial hat. Scary for Brewers fans, but Paul Wagner, the manager, is Hader your closer? Is Knebel your closer? Do you just kind of play it by ear? Do you split it?
I've got a little bit of issues. There hasn't been much talk about it, but I have some issues with Corey's velocity. I know his velocity isn't exactly where he wants to be. I've seen the breaking ball. It's got some bite. He's down at 12.6. He's got control of his off-speed pitches. I like him at the back end when he's healthy. I like Bobby Wall a lot. I think those bottom 3 or those last 3, like we had Hader, JJ, and Knebel before in days past, I think Craig really likes that when the game is in our hands, and that's where we want to shorten it to 6 innings. Corey's velocity does scare me a little bit, but we've got guys that can throw the ball. I love Bobby Wall. I like the acquisition from him from the New York Mets last year. Had a little issue with his knee, didn't play last year, but he's come back healthy. He's thrown the ball good. Josh's role, I want Hader to pitch. His role doesn't matter if he throws 12 pitches or he throws 18 pitches. He's got to go every other day, He's got to go every other day. So if he has 28 appearances in these 60 games, I'm happy, and that'll be success for the Milwaukee Brewers.
Hey, I'm going to get you out of here in just a second, but they play against some terrible ball clubs this year. They're going to, hopefully split with the Cardinals, the Cubs, the Reds. But they should get fat when they can on Detroit and on Kansas City and some of these other teams. I mean, Minnesota is going to be really tough because that team hits home runs like they're going out of style. But this team, 60 games, you have a number in your head. What wins the division? What gets them in the playoffs? And what do you think the Brewers are going to do?
Well, we got 40 division games, right? So we have 40 games against our division. If we play 10 games against each team, we've got to win every series, obviously. But if you can win a 6 to 7, if you can beat a couple, maybe at least one, you've got to take a couple 7. You can never lose one. You got to split. But if you can go 7 wins, 3 losses with at least 1, maybe 2, you're going to win it. So you can do the math there. I'm going to say you just can't get into a slump where you're losing. You can never lose a series. If you're 5-5, I'll move on to the next series. I can't lose a series to a division opponent, and I'd love to go 6-4. If I go 6-4 with everybody on my 10 games, I win. I win the division.
You think the Brewers win the division, Paul?
Yes. Yeah.
You think the Brewers win the division?
Yeah, I know that. I saw the MLB ratings. I saw it. Yep. I saw they got the Cubs ahead of us. They don't scare me. Cincinnati's got a little offense in that little ballpark. I know the ball can jump. I don't know. Moose is over there. They made some acquisitions. Joey Votto's going to play a little better than he has in the past. He's excited.
Didn't they add Castellanos? Didn't they add Castellanos? Didn't Cincinnati add him? He can hit the ball a long way, yeah.
Yeah, and that little ballpark, the ball jumps, especially early. So, now all of a sudden, now we're playing, we're playing, and the ball's jumping. We're going to hit some home runs. We've seen Eric Thames. That is one thing we didn't bring up here. I was talking to the guys out in D.C. on ESPN, and that was one of the biggest pickups that I think before this hit and before the season was determined how it was going to play out. Eric Thames going to the Washington Nationals for $3 million or so. I think that would have been a great player if we could have kept him, because now you got that DH rule. Now you got a guy coming off the bench. And hell, he hits every home run he hit last year was in Cincinnati.
And some of the ones he hit in Milwaukee, he hit all the way to Cincinnati with that power.
Exactly. So that's one of the left-handed bats I wish we still had. And it's hindsight, 2020. If we've known what it would have played out, I think that the price tag wasn't too much. But if we were playing 162, I can understand it to an extent. But I think if we can stay on top of these guys, I think our pitching will be fine. We got the arms to move through where we don't have to necessarily worry about a success and a guy going 12 starts and he has to go 8-4.
What would your numbers have been after 60 games playing for Jimmy Leland back in the day?
I think every game would have meant something. So he probably would have said, Wagner, we're going to save you.
Wags, always good to catch up with you, my friend. Take care. We'll talk again soon. Thank you so much for coming on, and please stay safe.
Absolutely. You too.
Thanks to Paul Wagner for joining me, dude. Wags is a good guy, man. I like that guy, and I've known him for quite a while. And back in the old days when we were just 1250 in Milwaukee and not 105.7 in Milwaukee, and watching him, I know he does stuff with the game in Milwaukee now, and I'm so proud of him because he learned how to use Zoom. Well, I take that back. One of the girls in his office taught him how to. Actually, she did all the work and downloaded Zoom for him, but it was good to talk to him because we've got baseball. We are hours away from baseball. We are hours away from Brewers baseball, and it's going to be a little bit weird. It's going to be a little bit strange, I know, but I'll be watching, starved for baseball. And I was talking with somebody earlier about the crowd noise they're going to be pumping in, and they said, what's your take on the crowd noise? And I think I mentioned this in last week's podcast, so I won't spend a ton of time talking about it. But last week, I had mentioned that watching some of the games on Brewers.com with BA, Brian Anderson, it was less weird than I thought it was going to be. It was still kind of normal to hear it. And when a ball is hit in the air and a crowd they hit the button or whatever, it felt like real baseball. Now, with no fans behind home plate, that's going to feel a little bit weird, but we'll see. And it's just the whole season's going to just be straight up weird. And the bubble starts soon, and we'll talk a lot about. We'll get a Bucks breakdown on next week's podcast for sure, as the Bucks get ready to chase a title in the strangest NBA season. So, what about the National Football League? What about the NFL? Well, I think the Ravens were one of the first teams to say we're going to allow 14,000 people at our stadium. And we found out this week the Green Bay Packers in an 80,000-seat stadium at Lambeau Field, they are going to allow between 10 and 12,000 people. And it was interesting, when I was filling in for Steve Zabin in Madison, Milwaukee, and Green Bay, at that time, the Packers had sent out a letter to season ticket holders saying, we'd like to know what you would like to do. Would you like to, A, cancel your season tickets? Nobody does that. It's the Packers. B, would you like to roll your money that you have spent into the 2021 season? Or C, would you like to be part of the plan we're putting together for season ticket holders who get first opportunity, first choice, first crack to sit at Lambeau Field 8 times a year? And you got to send in whichever one you wanted to do. And personally, if it was me, I'm rolling my money over to 2021 till we figure out a vaccine, till we figure out a cure, till this thing is under control. And everybody's free to have whatever choice they want with that. And, that's just going to be the way that things are going to go. You make your choice if you want to sit in that stadium. And, I don't know what 10 to 12,000 is going to look like for a Green Bay Packers game. It's an eighth or something? I don't know. I'm not that smart. So think about it. Like, how small will the crowds be, and where do they get to go, and can they move, and who's going to enforce that? Will your seats be roped off? Like, how do you possibly tell people you have to stay in your seat if there's so much open space around them? I know they're going to, tarp off the first couple of rows. You're not going to see a Lambeau leap, so you're not going to be down there in that area. And what happens with masks? There's the big mask, anti-mask. Now, stores everywhere, the Walmarts and Targets and Aldi and everywhere is making you wear a mask if you want to go in. I know Hy-Vee is making you wear a mask if you want to go in, if you have Hy-Vees, wherever you are. And everybody is making, people wear masks to come in. I'm very pro-mask. I've never hid that. I have 3 kids. I'm not taking any chances. I wear a mask when I go to the grocery store. I don't go out very much. I've been to 1 restaurant in 4 months. And I was there just to meet with a friend I hadn't talked to in a while, and we had a beer, 2 beers, maybe 3 beers. We had a couple of beers, and we talked. I ate my meal, he ate his, and then we left. And that was the only time. And you know what? I still felt kind of weird inside that restaurant. So what about masks at sporting events? Now, we don't have to worry about that with the NBA. We don't have to worry about that with Major League Baseball, but we are going to have to worry about it if they let fans in for football games. And this just came down. My guy Gary Ellerson on The Fan put this up on his Facebook page from Bleacher Report. Fans attending NFL games will be required to wear masks in stadiums this season during the COVID-19 pandemic. League spokesman Brian McCarthy confirmed this on Wednesday. For those wondering, yes, it is league-wide. Fans at NFL games will be required to wear face coverings. I'm trying to show you that on the video, and it's just not working. So you are going to have to wear a mask if you go to an NFL game. I don't know how they police that, frankly. I'm not 100% sure how they can police that. What if they see you sitting in row X with your group partitioned off? Are you going to wear a mask? Are you going to, if they say you're not wearing it, do you get kicked out? Do you get slapped on the wrist? What if you put it on, they walk away, 10 minutes later, you take it off, you drink your beer? Are they even selling concessions? Because to me, and I've talked about this before on the podcast, if you're taking this seriously for fan safety, you're going to ditch concessions. That brings in a whole lot of money to Lambeau. That brings in a ton of money to Lambeau Field. And this whole cancel fans altogether, I think I saw a stat. If they cancel games, check that. If they cancel fans from games, it will cost the Green Bay area $40 million. Green Bay needs that money. That's hotels, that's restaurants, that's bars, that's everything. Green Bay needs that money. There's no doubt Green Bay needs that money. And so I started thinking about the masks in these stadiums, and I'll be 100% honest with you. I don't love going to football games as a fan. I don't love it. Your vantage point, unless you're paying good money, is often not great. I like being in the stadium for the sound. I like being in the stadium if it's not 1,000,000 degrees. I don't even mind being in the stadium if it's 5 degrees. I actually kind of like cold weather games more than hot games, personally. With being at home, they've made the NFL experience so great for people at home with all the camera angles and the yellow line, and everybody's got a DVR, and you can back it up, and the sound and everything. You see all those instant replays and angles that you don't get at home. That you don't get at the football games at the stadiums. And then I started thinking about what it would be like to wear a mask at a game. Now, if you're going to Ford Field in Detroit, or you're going to whatever they call the stadium in Minneapolis, those 8 games that you're at home, your temperature is pretty controlled. It's 72 inside or 70 inside or whatever. But what happens if you're going to a game, week 2, it could be 85 at Lambeau Field? You're going to don a mask for 3.5 hours in that heat, you and 11,000 other people? You're going to wear a mask for 3.5 hours? But what about this? What about other stadiums? Go south. I mean, I lived in Kansas City for several years, and I went to a couple of Chiefs games at Arrowhead. Oh, boy, were they hot. Kansas City's warm till October. What about Miami? You going to wear a mask down at Dolphins games? You going to wear a mask where it's 90 degrees for the first third of a season, if not longer. I don't know how long it stays 90 in Miami. I know it stays 90 in Miami longer than it does in Green Bay, Wisconsin. What about Jacksonville or Los Angeles? Or any of these other stadiums? Tampa. You're gonna wear a mask in Tampa, Florida in the middle of October when it's 85 degrees out? I don't think you're going to do that. It seems incredibly uncomfortable. And again, I'm very pro-mask, but I'd rather stay home. I don't know what your plan is. Let me know in the comment section on the Facebook page, or you can shoot me an email, MikeWickettPodcasts@gmail.com. Thanks to Paul Wagner for joining me. So cool to talk to Wags, get a little baseball preview. Everybody enjoy the first couple of games, and we'll react to those first games, I'm sure, on social media. I may do a mini podcast this weekend after watching the first couple of Brewers games on Fox Sports or Wisconsin, because baseball's back in a weird way. And then next week on the podcast, we'll have an NBA bubble preview. I'll find someone to chat with me. Got a couple of ideas that are out there to talk some NBA basketball as the Bucks make a run in the bubble at the title, and we'll get to that definitely next week. Again, thanks to Paul Wagner. Thanks to you for listening. Please tell a friend, especially if they are a fan of your favorite teams in the state of Wisconsin. We're on Apple Podcasts. We're on Google. We're on Spotify. You know where to find us. I'm Mike Wickett. Thanks so much for listening to Wickett on Wisconsin. As always, go Pack, go Bucks, and go Brewers. Thanks for listening to Wickett on Wisconsin. If you have any feedback or you want to reach out to the show, you can find me on Facebook, Mike Wickett Podcasts, or you can email MikeWickettPodcasts@gmail.com. And you can find me on Instagram and Twitter @Mike Wickett. Thanks to Silverman Sound Studios for providing the music for today's show. And you can find us anywhere you find your podcasts, including Apple, Spotify, and Google Podcasts. Until next week, thanks for listening to Wickett on